Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Borofsky and Mr. Mossad, for being here to appear in front of us. I had the dubious distinction to vote on TARP, to vote against it, I think for all the right reasons. I had the dubious distinction to be foreclosed upon by my electorate in the next election, and then for the last 2 years to hear the response of people who finally awakened to the fact that, yes, there was a problem, yes, there was a significant concern, yes, there was a meltdown that was taking place, but frankly, their opinion was that it was the wrong approach to take, and it seems to have borne out. Mr. Mossad, I would ask you, and I hope this hasn't been asked while I was away at another committee meeting, but what are the plans for the obligated TARP funds which have not yet been spent?
The only funds that have not yet been spent are those for the housing programs. And let me just note, it's not $70 billion for HAMP. Our portion of HAMP, there is a GSE portion. Our portion of HAMP is 29. We've done a number of other housing programs. So there's $45 billion allocated for a variety of housing programs. There's still a very small amount that's committed for the public-private investment partnership. Basically, we're no longer making new commitments. We're no longer doing new programs. Our focus now is getting the money back. And we've gotten, as I say, a lot of it back, and I expect we will get a lot more of it back. And essentially all the programs, leaving aside the housing programs, all the programs considered as a whole will result in very little cost or potentially even a profit, because we will get all the funds back.
Can you make a blanket commitment here today that those unobligated funds will not be spent?
Congressman, I can make a blanket commitment to you that we will make no further commitments of funds. We do not have that authority. But let me make clear, there are funds that are obligated that may be spent. There are no funds that we will that are unobligated. We will not make any further obligations of funds.
But you will not spend them, unobligated funds.
Unobligated funds we will not spend. But I just want to make sure we're communicating. We no longer have authority to make obligations. I can't make new commitments of funds. I will not, therefore, make new commitments of funds. We do have some funds that have been committed but not spent, and those, we expect at least some of those will be spent, not necessarily all of them.
Thank you. Mr. Borofsky, on page 6 of SIGTARP report, in referencing, in comparing recipients of the Federal assistance to Fannie and Freddie, you make this statement: in many ways, TARP has helped to mix the same toxic cocktail of implicit guarantees and distorted incentives that led to disastrous consequences for the government-sponsored entities. Based upon that statement, how are big banks who receive TARP money similar to those entities?
Well, the two of the big characteristics of what happened with the lead up to the conservatorship of Fannie and Freddie was, one, the implicit guarantee they received that they had a government backstop. And one of the legacy results of TARP is that the market still believes that the United States government is backstopping the largest too big to fail institutions. And that causes a whole range of problems. It hurts market discipline. Counterparties, creditors, investors, they don't do the due diligence that's necessary when evaluating whether to do business with one of these banks or investing in one of these banks, because they believe that they'll be any type of risk they take will be backstopped by Uncle Sam and the taxpayer. That gives them an advantage. It gives them the opportunity to borrow money more cheaply. S&P recently announced their intent to change the rating system to make it as a permanent aspect that the too big to fail banks will have higher ratings based on implicit government guarantee. And they say this notwithstanding Dodd-Frank and other countries' response to the financial crisis. This is a market distortion. And as a result, the executives of those banks get back into the position where it's heads I win, tails the taxpayer bails me out.
What recommendations might you suggest to go away from that?
I think
moral hazard.
I think that where we are, and what we have is Dodd-Frank and the FSOC and the committee that's providing oversight, and it does have a lot of tools. They need to have both the regulatory will and the political will to rein in the size of these banks. They have to do two things which are going to be remarkably difficult, and Secretary Geithner, to his credit, was remarkably candid with us about the limitations of what they'll be able to do. But first of all, they have to have a system where they can credibly resolve large financial institutions without bailing out the shareholders, the creditors, and the executives. Second, which is probably just as important, they have to convince the markets that that's actually going to happen. Because if they don't convince the markets, if they don't have the credibility that they will not be bailing out institutions going into the future, it almost won't matter otherwise. Because again, those incentives will still be warped. That discipline will still be gone, and those risks, where with the idea that the taxpayer will bail out the executives, the shareholders, the counterparties, will continue a perversion of the system.
Thank you. In the parent world, we call that tough love. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman.